There we go. It looks perfect. I gotta use my head, my big head to block the sun. All right. So the movie for October 14th was Friday the 13th, part. I'm gonna embarrass myself. Part 4, part 6. VI. Jason Lives. Um, I guess. Well, just like off the bat, I kind of have to preface this by saying that I watched a version of it that's on YouTube. So unfortunately, it's like heavily edited. It basically turns it into like a PG-13 movie. Um, so I guess like the review is kind of skewed in that way, right? Because I'm gonna say not recommended, or this version not recommended. Um, and I feel just like some quick things to go over. Like even if I did watch the original version, I still don't think I would have liked it that much. And I mean, again, it's like sort of weird just because I'm jumping straight into four, five, six. Um, just like straight into it after everything that came before it. But I'm familiar enough with Friday the 13th, so I was like, you know what, I'll just pick one at random, one that I haven't seen before, because I've seen one, two, and three. One being my personal favorite, and then I guess another preface as well. Slashers aren't really my thing, but just as someone who kind of likes movies and horror stuff specifically, I mean, you got to give it up to Jason in the Friday the 13th series. I mean, he's such like an iconic character, and the series as a whole like definitely like spawned a lot of like copycats, and inspired a lot of stuff that exists in the genre right now. Mainly for slashers, obviously, and I guess like the formula that a lot of slashers kind of pick up on. Um, and then even some of like the tropier stuff, I guess, right? Like obviously with Friday the 13th, like one of the main things is like campsite and a lot of sex scenes. And I mean, like in horror, I feel like you see that sort of thing pretty often. And I mean, we have Friday the 13th to thank for that. Um, yeah, so I guess just like prefaces out the way. I mean, again, one, familiar enough with Friday the 13th, and then two, not really into slashes to begin with. Uh, but I mean, even so, like I'll just like praise that first one really quick. And I feel like this conversation isn't necessarily going to be about Jason Lives. I'll get into it, but I think I want to talk more about, I guess, what would the word be? Like the legacy of Friday the 13th, and like how something like iconic like plays into like the culture. Um, and then another thing I want to talk about is like censorship as a whole. But I guess like talking about like the legacy, right? I mean, like I kind of said it before, but like Friday the 13th, it's like so iconic for a lot of things, and then obviously the thing it's most iconic for is Jason, like his look. You know what I mean? I feel like if you've never seen the movies, you know who Jason is regardless, right? Uh, Again, just because he has such an iconic look, and I mean even people now, younger people, and obviously like this movie came out way before my time, and we've had like a remake here and there. Um, but I wasn't there when like the Jason hype was going on. So for me, it's a bit different. But I mean, again, like even before I watched the movies, I knew who Jason was. I knew like the music. I knew like some of the sound stuff. I knew his like weapon of choice. Just like all these things are so ingrained in pop culture now. Um, and I mean, again, I guess you gotta kind of praise it for that. Um, but like kind of piggybacking off of that idea, uh, I want to go back to praising the first one, but obviously, whenever you think Friday the 13th, you think about all the things I've kind of said. You think about Jason, the hockey mask. You think about like the machete. You think about the gruesome kills. Like the sex scenes and stuff like that, because that's such a huge part of it. Crystal Lake. You like whenever you hear Friday the 13th, you start thinking about all these things. Which is why I liked the first one so much, because of how much it surprised me. It has those elements, of course, but obviously there's like a major twist in it where it's not even necessarily about Jason the character. It's about his mother, and the mother getting revenge for Jason's death. Like that's something that completely blindsided me, and it's sort of bizarre. Like people will talk all day about Friday the 13th, but at the time that I watched it, that's something I never really knew about. Now that I've, like seen more, and I guess, like I guess like review type stuff, right? People talking about the movies. That's like a main point of conversation, like that twist element of the story in the first one. Um, but yeah, it's great. I love the first one a lot. So I've seen like a handful here and there, but then this one, Jason Lives, not a fan. Even if it was like the regular version, I don't think I would have been a fan. Um, Again, this movie is like 80s, so like in some ways it's like a bit dated. Um, and then also the version that I watched, heavily censored, which is very annoying. Um, so I guess I'll just like talk about the movie real quick before I get into talking about censorship. But the thing about the movie, I feel like it just really trips me up because it's sort of slow. That's like a main thing. Uh, and everybody just kind of seems like fodder, except for Tommy and except for Megan, right? Main boy, main girl. But everybody else is just like so like throwaway. Like I don't really care about any of them, and I guess that's like part trope in Friday the 13th, right? You just kind of have characters to like throw at Jason, so Jason can just like demolish them. Um, but I don't know. To me personally, like this is also why I don't like slashers. Sometimes I don't know. It's just not very entertaining, unless like the kills are like so like so insane. I think something like I guess more recently, right? What's the movie called? In a Violent Nature, right? Slasher, and I mean like same premise almost as Friday the 13th. You have like a undead killer that goes around a lake and just like brutally murders people. And in that movie it's a bit different because he kind of has like a quest. In this, Jason just kills for the thrill of it. Um, but yeah, so that aside, yeah, like obviously don't really care about the characters. Like most of them are like kind of annoying, really. I think about just like some of the stuff that they'll like get up to, and I mean again 80s, so I'm pretty sure like some of them like the younger actors were like kind of coked out their minds a little bit or something. But man, the scene in the van, pretty funny scene and all, but dude, it goes like way too far, way too long. The guy's saying dumb shit while he's like driving the van. He's like, "Oh man, this is cool, this is awesome," and it's like it's funny, yeah, but it's like I don't know. It I don't think it's intentionally supposed to be funny necessarily. It just like comes off as like bad acting, I guess. I don't know. But at the same time, like that's like a weird appeal to these movies. Is like they are just like kind of goofy, but it just doesn't work for me, and that's all I can really say. Um, and then like another scene too with Megan on the phone talking to Tommy because Tommy's being accused of being the killer. Um, and that's kind of an interesting angle. I like that bit. Um, of course, it like gets resolved like fairly quickly, but whenever he's like kind of on the run, he calls Megan to help him out, and she's also just like so like jokey and like animated. It's bizarre because I mean Tommy is like the only one in the whole movie who's like playing it straight. He's like in hysterics because like Jason's back, and obviously he has like a history with Jason. So like his like hysteria like is very apparent, but everybody just kind of brushes him off. Like they know who he is too. They even say shit like, "Oh, you're that kid, right? You're the one who was like being chased by Jason, right?" And then he's like, "Yeah, and Jason was just chasing me right now," and everybody's like, "Oh, you're crazy." Like, don't don't believe the dude who's like already lived it. You know what I mean? It's so stupid, but I mean I don't know, commentary on like police ineptitude, maybe. I feel like that's kind of a reach though. I just feel like all the characters are stupid. Um, but yeah, so just like that, the acting like turns me off big time. It's like so silly, and like the only bit of like silliness that kind of worked for me was was like the Undertaker character, just or like the groundskeeper guy, the one that's always drinking. But I mean, at the same time, he just feels like so out of place to me a little bit. Well, I mean, I guess like considering the series, he's exactly where he needs to be. But I don't know, like too comical. Like I don't know. That's the thing. I feel like a lot of the time I can say I don't know because I know people like these aspects, and like the only thing I can really say is that they don't work for me. Um, and yeah, so the movie as a whole doesn't really work for me. And again, with the censored version, they like cut away from all the best stuff, all the kills, right? Um, but then I guess because I've talked about it before with like say like the Nun and well, I guess the Nun specifically, and even Smile to an extent. But both those movies are R rated, but they're so tame in my opinion. Like they could have just been PG-13, and I mean the edit for this basically makes the movie into a PG-13. I mean, like, it's probably still considered rated R just because it came out in the 80s. And in the 80s, they thought that shit was extreme. Uh, but, you know, like now, like, it's just like, like nothing almost. Because, you know, like horror as a genre has changed so much. But, you know, also changed very little. But, like, the stuff that deserves R ratings um, don't really get seen in the same way. Uh, if that makes sense. I'm talking more, I guess, like psychological horror stuff. Like usually gets the R rating, um, but you know, like that's not even like necessarily for gore or you know like intense violence. It's more so for content, like just like the stuff that they'll like delve into the movies. I think you know Hereditary is a pretty good example for that. Like there is some like gruesome violence in it, but if you really wanted to, you could probably tone it down, make it PG-13. But because of what the movie is talking about and the way it like portrays its themes, that's why, in my opinion, it's most likely rated R. You know, just like heavier subject matter, and you know, like audiences would be iffy on it. But I mean, you know, going back to slasher stuff or even paranormal stuff, a lot of the time they'll get the R rating, even though they don't really need it. They could have gotten just PG-13, and they probably would have made more money, but you know, I guess like with the way audiences work sometimes, like they'll see the R rating, it's like, oh man, this is supposed to be scary. So then that also drives ticket sales. Um, yeah, this is more just like meta commentary on like the industry now, I guess. But hopefully, like the point is coming across. Just that uh, this the censorship doesn't really work, and like trying to tone it down doesn't really make sense. And you know, rate the rating system for movies a lot of the time doesn't really make sense. And I mean, in this one, I felt it completely. I mean, again, like different time from the '80s, yeah, but it's like even for the '80s, I think it's super tame, right? Again, I feel like the main reason why it gets the R rating uh, is mainly just for sex scenes because there isn't really a lot of swearing a lot of the time either. And I know back then that was like a really like you know like hot topic, right? Uh, like swearing in movies, and I mean like there's blood and stuff in this, and you know like what I can assume is intense violence. Again, like it was censored for me, so um, I don't know, and I'd never seen the original cut for Jason Lives specifically. I've seen the original cut for the other ones, but not this one. But I mean, even like when I do think of the other ones, like the violence is never really that intense. It's like it's very cartoonish almost. But again, that's like an appeal for the movies, and you know sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. In this, I feel like some of the kills that are like the best ones are the ones like where they are just like kind of goofy, where you can kind of tell it's like a rag doll being thrown around and shit. That stuff is actually funny and entertaining to me. Um, but with Jason Lives specifically, it's like kind of few and far between. I think he kills like three different people just by like crushing their head. But then obviously, oh, that's too violent. We got to cut away whenever he like bursts their head like a pimple. Um, so to sum it up, you know, Friday the 13th, I think it's like solid. This one not so much. Jason Lives not so much. Um, So I definitely wouldn't recommend the cut that I saw on YouTube. It's weird, man, and it kind of sucks too because all of them are on YouTube. You know, which seems nice. I mean, especially in October, right? But you get the worst version of them, plain and simple. So audiences now would technically be missing out. You know, like they hear so much about Friday the 13th, this legendary series, um, and then they finally watch it and they're like, oh wait, this sucks because you know like they see it on the internet and they just assume that that's how it was, but. Obviously it was like much better, and like of the time it was like sort of breakthrough in some ways. Um, but I mean, even still, for me specifically, I don't know. There's there's other horror I would watch to begin with, and even like other slashers I'd watch over Friday the 13th, if I'm being honest. Um, I feel like the only time I'd ever think about watching Friday the 13th if I was watching it with people, and this one I watch by myself, so I feel like that's also kind of what drags it down for me. Just like a personal experience, or a personal viewing experience is what taints it a little bit in my mind. But yeah, like if you're watching this with people, I feel like it'd be a bit more entertaining because you can talk through it, and just like kind of talk about it. Because even when I was watching it, there's like things I'm thinking, but it's just me on my lonesome. There's nobody to bounce off of. Um, or maybe if I'm having a drink, right? Watch it while I'm having a drink. I feel like that'd be pretty chill. It'd probably just make the movie more funnier, if anything. Um, but yeah, man, like the censorship, censorship, of this one specifically, like really does ruin it, and it kind of sucks that people are gonna get just like an inferior experience overall, and it's just gonna taint their idea of like what like slashers of the time or even horror of the time was really like. Um, and it sucks. I can't really shout out any like '80s like horror. Uh, or I guess like John Carpenter, right? Like anything John Carpenter at the time, like solid. I guess just like '80s, '90s sort of era for him. Uh, but then I think also too, just like more like recent slashers that I enjoy. Freaky, I think is what it's called. The one with Vince Vaughn. That one I like quite a bit, and I feel like that one's a pretty decent slasher. So I mean, if you're into slashers and like you're looking for something a bit more contemporary, check that one out. Um, Happy Death Day isn't that bad. I actually quite like both of them, or I guess like they both only work so well because they like lead into each other so perfectly, and like the story like works in service of each other. So I mean, yeah, Happy Death Day, and then Happy Death Day to You. Uh, just like watch both of them back to back, and like that'd be a good time if you're into slashers. Um, Again, those are just like two recent examples that are popping in my head right now. I brought up In a Violent Nature, but I feel like that one's kind of on par with like you know more Friday the 13th inspired, obviously, but they just kind of take it to like newer heights with more like gruesome kills. Uh, yeah, so I guess like three other slashers I'd recommend just those. Again, Happy Death Day to You, and the first one. So Happy Death Day to You, um, as like companion pieces. So technically two movies, In a Violent Nature and Freaky. So I mean, if you're looking for slasher, just check out those like contemporary slasher. But I mean, with the slasher back then, like I said, John Carpenter, right? Halloween. I feel like that was a big inspiration for Friday the 13th because I think Halloween came out before, so they kind of wanted like a new like face on like the slasher scene. Aside from Mike Myers, just playing off of that. Um, but I mean, again, like the first Friday the 13th, like rocks, and then everything else is just kind of whatever to me. And I mean, this one specifically is very whatever. But again, it's just that edit, man. It just like completely ruins the movie, or like ruins the purpose of the movie, right? So I guess my fault for watching it on YouTube. Really, maybe I would rewatch it again, but like the actual cut, like just try to find it somewhere, or like the uncut version, right? Try to find that somewhere and just watch that, just to give it like more of a fair chance. Uh, but I mean, again, like all of my like smaller nitpicks, I feel are pretty valid. Just like weird acting, um, that's the main thing. Just just the weird acting turns me off so much. Um, every character being like so completely stupid or like insane almost, like it gets annoying after a while. Um, and then obviously, the only person I care about is just Tommy, because he's like the only person actually trying to get things done. I guess that just makes him like an easy protagonist to root for. So that's probably the only positive I can think of off the top of my head. But I guess that's it for October 14th. We're about halfway there. It's been interesting so far, but I mean, like, let me know what y'all think. I guess, like, if you come across this, just like what I was talking about with censorship, and like the legacy of like older movies, right? And like how they can um, like come across to like newer audiences, or I guess like younger people like me. I mean, I'm only like in my like early 20s, uh, but I've still like seen a lot of old stuff, so I can like kind of put myself in like the headspace of like what it would have been back then. But obviously, I'm never gonna know that experience firsthand. Um, but yeah, so I guess just like the commentary on like how something like this would be viewed by a newer audience. Like, I mean, again, me as an example, but then like even like audiences going forward, right? Like people like 18 now, or people in like the early 20s like me, or even like future like younger audiences. Whenever they come of age and like decide to go back to like 80s movies, like how they're gonna view something like this. Um, and then also just censorship, right? Like what do y'all like? Like what do y'all think about censorship? I mean, obviously, I feel like most people would say it's bad. Typically, I mean, especially for something like this, right? Because I mean, like the movie is like made with an intent just to be a bit graphic and vulgar. But I mean, like you're not even gonna let them do that. So like what's the point? But yeah, I guess that's it for now. Take care.